Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Bear Guys and 2T Fitness. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language, and I will not go to my room. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is a Friday the 13th edition. Today, we're talking Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Eventually. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man looking to throw me off the boat, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello, Tom.
Welcome to New York.
Eventually.
Yeah, it's both impossible that line would not be in the movie.
Yeah.
And equally impossible that it comes 15 minutes from the end of the movie.
Well, here we are.
So much to talk about, and the fact that it's said in a diner that is clearly in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, right.
I also want to know which friend of Kane Hodder's the chef in the diner, the short order chef who comes from behind the counter and is like 10 feet tall is. That's a friend of Hodder's.
Gotta be.
I guarantee it. Yeah.
They've done questionable things together, is my guess.
Set each other on fire.
Yeah. All right. Jason Takes Manhattan. Here we are. This is a movie with 11% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, come on. That is punitive. That's petty. That's petty journalism.
But all right, well, we'll do the numbers. This movie had a budget of $5 million, an opening weekend of $6.2 million, and in the USA and the world garnered $14.3 million. All these movies feel in that wheelhouse, right? Like until we get to you, these movies have like a budget. Yeah, these movies have a budget under $5 million. Mm-hmm. They'll have an opening weekend around $5 million, and then they'll make about $15 million, is how they kind of all feel.
It's interesting because they go from independent production, like fly-by-night production companies make them for a long time, and then they get attached to New Line, which is like the studio version of a fly-by-night production company. So
yeah, right.
It doesn't feel like there's a. I guess you know the word Freddy versus Jason is they put all their chips into that, but the New Line story is kind of like it. You know, it begins from the bottom and becomes a kind of solid independent studio that I guess then gets bought by Warner and all of that merger, but. It's not as if the production values go up demonstrably.
Yeah, right.
When it becomes a New Line property in the way that you think it would.
No, you get little beads of red light coming in and out of bodies. That's about it.
Yeah.
Well, this movie's directed by one Rob Heaton.
Uh-huh.
Probably don't know him.
Yeah, what else has he done?
Episodes of The Commish. And Star Trek Enterprise. And movies I don't know, like can't even read my writing. Box Borders and You May Not Kiss the Bride.
Well, I've not heard of either of those, but
yeah.
Captain, it is the Enterprise. Wow.
However, I'll say, watching him on Camp Crystal Lake Memories, I'm very drawn to this man. I've never seen a kind of more bright, happy fellow helming a project such as this.
Yeah, he understands his role.
Yeah,
and he's not trying to spin it into something it wasn't.
Right. And he just
And, you
sort of
know,
matter-of-factly says, here's what I wanted to do. They said I could not do that. So I said, can we do this? To which they said, absolutely not. And then I came up with this.
Yeah. And to be fair to him, when it gets to the parts of the movie that he's interested in, they do those parts well.
Yeah.
It's just that's a slim portion of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
In which that window is quite small for him to get all that in.
Right.
But I find those scenes really effective. So
I do too.
I would have liked to have seen like 90 minutes of it.
Well, once again, we have the newish Paramount logo.
Yeah.
With a Jason call.
So traditionally the signature thing. By the way, it's only in the last movie that it kind of became used like the Bond theme to herald Jason's arrival.
Right.
So we had, obviously in 6 we had the gun barrel moment, and now the music follows him around like the 007 theme.
Yeah.
But it traditionally, I believe, it goes kill, 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 ma, ma, ma.
Mm-hmm.
Not Jason, Jason, Jason takes Manhattan, Manhattan, Manhattan. Which I think is what they're saying here. And I don't know whether... I don't know what I'm most disappointed about, that they changed it from kill, 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 ma, ma, ma to Jason, Jason, Jason takes Manhattan, Manhattan, Manhattan. Or that they didn't do this at the beginning of every movie. Jason, Jason, Jason goes to hell, 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 hell.
Right.
Jason, XXXX.
That'd be great.
Freddy versus Jason, Jason, Jason. Or you could do
Jason,
like
Jason,
a
Jason.
crossover.
Part. Two.
You could do a crossover version of that where it's like Freddy versus Jason, Jason, Jason.
1, 2, Jason.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, 1,
Come.
2, Jason, Jason, Jason's coming for you. 3, 4, Freddy's knocking on the door.
Well, I noticed. Is there a piece of iconic artwork you noticed at the front of this film? In Times Square?
No. Iconic artwork? No. Tell me.
The Batman logo from '89 Batman, which only came out like a month before this movie.
Well, this tells you when they got these pickup shots from New York, doesn't it? On the way to handing in the movie.
That might not be true. They could have gotten it earlier, because I realized there's something. You don't go to the movies as much as I do in the theater now, and nowadays it's really annoying going to one. You have 23 minutes worth of previews, so you've got like 7 previews that you see.
I go to the movies with a kid, so I experience all of this.
Okay.
I just don't go for myself as much, so I get the same. I know the standard length of a coming attractions reel is 45 to 50 minutes.
But also, Batman '89 is the first time I remember seeing a preview for a movie further than 6 months from the release of the movie.
All right.
And so it's possible they were selling it earlier in the year while they filmed.
Possible.
But I like the idea of them, end of June of 1989. Like, get that shot! Print that shit! On the way
to the premiere. Just like, here's an extra can. You're gonna have to edit it into the movie live as you play it.
So good.
And it's interesting how the opening of this movie, first of all, is incredibly misleading, but second of all, it suggests that the movie is a kind of late 80s country boy in the big city movie, a la Secret of My Success, which in a way it kind of is.
Yes,
that's exactly what it is.
There's fewer music montages in this movie.
There certainly is, yeah. And there's a brief voiceover, right? Is that Crazy Ralph again, or
I didn't write it down.
It's like it sounds like a cult leader.
Really? What
Doing
do they
it.
say?
I don't know. I wrote down cult leader voiceover.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, probably because I wrote it down without writing it down. I wrote down, yes, I do remember it now. I wrote down that they're equating terror with the city of New York.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the subterfuge of this opening is that it will be a movie that in any way takes place in New York, which is just
Right.
a bold-faced lie. And you know that, and as well because of the economy of this of New York in this film, you know, even after the most cursory rewatch, that all the location shots you see and all the actors within it will reappear at the end. This is not like the broad strokes of the canvas. This is all we're going to see of New York in the entirety of the movie.
Yeah, right.
Is in this opening. It's just that we go back to it at the end. And it just, again, it's frustrating because everything they do in this opening makes me think that if you'd set the entire movie in New York, it really would have worked, because that shift from like lakeside execution to
Right.
urban muggings. It's like it's a reinvention of the way crime, like that's a whole new proposition for this series. It's that it's going to be like mercenary crime, like muggings, and how are we going to factor that into to Jason's kills? And that's eventually when the movie gets good.
That is what we see. Yeah.
That's what we see, and it is interesting. So, but to see it kind of teased in front of you at the beginning, and then and then for an hour removed from sight, it's kind of annoying. Although that is one long rat shot.
That's my note. I say we linger there too long on that rat. We go from
it's almost
kind of being scared by it to laughing at it to being bored with it.
Right. Yeah. I got to the point where I was starting to think, is this rat going to be a character in the movie? Is this a prequel to Ratatouille? Is this rat going to like become a chef in a New York restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, one of the shots is in this montage is the least New York looking New York diner in New York. This wood paneled cabin style roadside diner, which, as I said, is clearly in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, I have notes about the wood diner, Statue of Liberty, the streets and Times Square, and then a guy cooking up crank on his spoon.
Yes.
Like the things they're choosing to show you to give us the idea of New York.
But that's
they're
so
up and down, aren't they?
Because almost as a byproduct of them kind of, I guess, filming possibly without a permit in parts of New York where no people are around, it kind of looks like post-apocalyptic New York.
Yeah.
It's like, if you had told me which of these movies is set in a dystopian future, and I saw this, I'd be like, oh, this one, definitely. This is New York after the fall.
Jason X, that's on Mars. That's somewhere else.
But it's interesting because, like, you know, we start in a somewhat rural setting, but the way they make New York look, which is this, you know, famously thriving 24-hour city, it looks even more lifeless than Camp Crystal Lake does.
Crystal Lake,
and I don't think that's intentional, because that's not what we associate with New York.
Right.
Iconographically. But also the final shot of this opening montage makes it look like it's Jason's point of view, which would mean it's a flash forward. And I'm just like, oh, timeline
That's
problems.
too much for the timeline. Stop it. That's too much for the timeline to bear.
But luckily, we're not going to have to think about it for another hour, so that's fine.
We're going to immediately go to a yacht on the lake.
Oh, and speaking about slow-moving action, this boat slowly coming into view, preparing us for the pace at which the story on the boat will later unfold.
It's not exactly the shot of Star Wars 77, is it?
It's more like Spaceballs. It's more like the Spaceballs parody of that shot, yes. Yeah. And I got the game I started playing with this movie, which is less plausible.
Yeah.
This is a note I wrote a lot. So I was like, which is less plausible? Here are the two options: that Crystal Lake High School seniors are taking a slow boat to Manhattan to celebrate their graduation, or that this is deemed newsworthy enough to be covered by a New York radio station. I think it's the latter. I think it's the latter.
I think it's the latter.
But both are quite implausible.
Yeah. But I like in Camp Crystal Lake Memories that Rob Heaton, I mean, we're not exactly there yet, but when he's confronted with the questions of fandom of, so what's the deal with this? He goes, yeah, eventually we just said,
yeah, we knew we had to get
we knew
from
it was
A
a
to
problem,
B, and
but we knew we had to do it.
We had to get to A to B, and we decided there would be no through line.
Yeah.
And we're straight into
titties.
Straight into titties. Slow pan down sexy young bodies as they prepare for sex and remove their clothes. So there's no prevarication here.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we finally went ahead and filmed new flashback footage of Jason's origins.
Right.
So this, I mean, I don't know how deep we want to go into this because it's a little bit like the question I posed in the last episode of how long is he down in that lake. But he's noticeably not disabled. This Jason. And in 2024, is that better or worse?
Yeah.
It feels worse, but at the same time, I'm like, well, if you take the disability out of it, it's less offensive to people who have disfigurements or have learning difficulties. So, what do I value more?
Right.
And it's kind of like,
you don't want to be caught arguing for I want more Mongoloid.
Exactly. I want Jason to be full Mongoloid. Exactly. Yeah. It gets difficult.
Hashtag not my Jason. Hashtag give me more Mongoloid.
But also, it's this fucking douchebag telling the story.
Yeah.
And he's doing so quite theatrically. So it also introduced the possibility that everyone's version of the Jason story is slightly different, and we're kind of caught. The timeline is kind of caught in the Rashomon of it all.
Well,
we've not actually seen what really happened.
Right.
We've just seen various people's recounting of it, and in some tellings of the story, he's got a droopy eye, and in the others, his eyes where most people's eyes are. Yes.
But I love. I just, it really cracks me up every time I watch this movie where this douchey guy is retelling the story of Jason in part 8.
Yeah.
And it seems to be solely for the benefit of the audience. I get that, like, she's grown up at Camp Crystal Lake too, near as I can tell, the woman that he's making out with. Why does she need to be told this story? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, and he's doing it for the purposes of scaring her.
Yeah, right.
Because he's gonna come out and be fake out Jason in a moment, which is, again, each movie has to have a fake out Jason at some point.
But efficient way to get him remasked.
Get him after the mask was taken off him psychically in the last movie. At least they remember that much.
Right.
It's the story means by which Jason can actually get to the hockey mask, which is well handled. And we've just abandoned the idea that telekinesis wakes him up. We're back to just
electricity.
Electricity, yeah. An anchor on an underwater cable is enough to reanimate him this time.
What exactly is pulling on that anchor?
It's an underwater cable.
Yeah, but
presumably
the anchor drops next to
TV now.
I like, by the way, that they let us know for sure. Like, do you always label all your cables with the number of volts in the cable?
Yeah. Well, especially if they're underwater, that's good information.
Yeah, you gotta have that. The anchor lands next to the cable.
Uh-huh.
And then an unknown force just starts dragging it towards the cable. We never find out what or why.
Well,
Just
maybe
happens.
that's more telekinesis in the local area.
Could be.
And he's back. He's also back with the harpoon gun, which is a callback to his first appearance in the hockey mask.
That's true. There's a moment in here that I really love because there's a choice made by every department involved in this movie and the director that I don't know if it was purposeful or not. Because if you look at what happens at the end of this movie, you would say this was on purpose. But when Jason climbs up onto the boat, there's this close-up shot of his fingers. And you have waterlogged crud over all of them, except, like, this pinky. There's just regular human skin on that pinky, as though all you need to get Jason to turn into a regular person is just to wash off that crud.
Yeah.
And the slime and toxic waste of New York City is the ticket to that.
Well, that's enough of a choice in the movie that... I mean, yes, it could just be oversight.
It looked like it was a mistake.
Yes.
That is a happy accident.
However, it's very much a happy accident because that's definitively what the movie concludes, is that he drowned in the lake as a boy, and since he came out on the surface, he's become covered in so much, I don't know, like nature fungus.
Yeah.
It's turned him into a like someone with the gait of a wrestler.
Right.
But you can take that off with toxic waste,
and he'll become a boy again.
And he's just a boy under there, under all the. Actually, it makes sense that Kane Hodder is 90% fungus.
Agreed.
And 10% boy.
Yes.
That is as good a.
That I believe.
Manifestation of what Kane Hodder could be than what Jason really is. Yeah. And
this is to say nothing of the fact that I don't think yachts are on this lake. This movie has bigger boat problems, but
yeah, no one will be able to swim in it without getting a propeller to their head.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
The number of boats that seem to be in Crystal Lake in this movie. The number of Jason's kills would be significantly outnumbered by deaths from yacht motors.
Yeah,
in the water.
At any rate,
and this is we begin with a couple of weak source kills, but I think you can immediately see the censorship interference here.
Yeah.
These were obviously meant to be more gratuitous and prolonged than they are. It also looks like he slides the arrows into the bodies as if he's afraid to break them.
Yeah, right.
Which I don't know if that is an in-world choice, like I'm going to reuse this arrow as Jason, or someone in the props department saying, we got 2 of these.
Yeah, right.
You break one, it's all over.
It's done.
Yeah. But he's been super careful when he slides those arrows into people.
Trying to be as careful as mice.
Or rats.
But
long rats.
I'll tell you what they weren't careful with. Their poor fucking actor. What's her name that plays Susie here? Tiffany Paulson. Yeah. On the Camp Crystal Lake Memories, what she was saying. So they just said, make sure you don't move because they're going to actually shoot a harpoon right next to your head.
Yeah.
That was terribly upsetting.
It was the saddest part of that is she'd rationalized it as if that's something that happens to all actors on all sets.
Right.
That was the saddest part of that. And you knew as you were watching it, was going, that literally Alec Baldwin is on trial for doing stuff like that now.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and then we've had rats, and now we're gonna meet a dog. So
yeah, On that
like
slow harpoon
babe.
kill, I said
Yeah.
he's really savoring it.
Yeah. Well, he's been extra careful to not damage the head of that arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when the dog appears, I'm like, is this just going to be a live-action animal movie like Babe Pig in the City or something? What's another great country to city sequel?
You know what's great is, I mean, this is skipping all the way to the end, but when that dog shows up at the end,
Yeah.
every time I watch this movie, I realize I had totally forgotten about that dog.
Yeah, so had everyone else.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of weird things that happen in this scene where you think she's being dropped off at the boat until you realize that
You think it's her mother.
You think it's her mother,
That's what
and then you
makes
realize
sense.
then you realize she's a teacher.
Yeah.
And she's getting on the boat with her.
With her.
Neither of which is established in the previous scene.
Right.
And then later you find out that the person you thought was a teacher is actually her relative.
Her
So it's a
legal
literal
guardian,
inversion.
who
Yeah,
did
they
not bring her to the boat.
No. But they talk about Stephen King, right? They have a conversation that mentions Stephen King, and I'm like, I guess that's a nod to the last movie being a failed Carrie crossover.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's either it's obviously horror metatextuality in the way that we've seen it kind of grow in the series, and it also shows that Stephen King is at a point where he's a name that you can draw on when it comes to horror, which is sort of one of the first times you could do that. But also, I seem to remember, I think we were talking about the Poltergeist movies or something. It's like when horror movies run out of ideas, they borrow things from Stephen King novels.
Yeah.
Stephen King stories.
I don't remember when we talked about it, but yes, you're right.
So I don't know. I feel like they're building goodwill for future borrowings of Stephen King here.
Well, my next note is that we have a new Crazy Ralph.
Crazy Ralph Maritime Edition. Was mine.
He's no Walt Gorney, though.
Rather than create a new character, they just transposed Crazy Ralph onto a sailor.
This voyage is doomed.
I mean, they don't even have the good grace to imply that he is Crazy Ralph's cousin or something.
Right.
The idea that there could be two such similar people in Crystal Lake and not be related.
But that's what happens when you get so late into a series, isn't it? You want to do an homage to something that happened earlier in the series, forgetting that this is still one small little lakeside town that has, people that have been living there the whole time.
And they clearly forgot that as well, because, I guess they were Camp Crystal Lake, that's just downriver from New York, right? Like, well, I mean, not in the way that water works in America, but and this, I mean, obviously we have to just suspend disbelief when it comes to the fact that this trip could ever happen at all.
No, yeah, it's crazy.
In geographically, socially, institutionally, none of it applies to the real world. But just this conflation of people on the boat, like
all 5 to 6 of them.
Well, you've got graduates, teachers, sailors,
captains,
like Navy captains,
and one good-looking deckhand.
One good-looking deckhand, and what it really reminded me of was the kind of hodgepodge of people that we found at the Camp Crystal Lake open air mental hospital in New Beginning.
Yeah,
I was getting the same vibe of all these people together in the same place doesn't feel like a good idea,
right?
Dramatically or in
world, yeah.
This is gonna end badly, putting all these people in a confined situation. Of course, this is where we first see the prominent mountains in the background of every single shot. So this is upstate. So at best, this is upstate New Jersey.
Upstate, in the huge state of New Jersey.
And I mean, they're upstate. I don't know enough about this part of the world, but are there mountains? I should have looked this up. Are there any mountains in the kind of upstate part of New York or New Jersey?
New York, yeah, sure.
Oh, there you go. That's where they are then. It's got nothing to do with the
But
fact that they filmed it in
famously,
Vancouver.
Camp Crystal Lake is supposed to kind of be in New Jersey, right?
Yeah. Are there any mountains in New Jersey?
I assume so, but I don't know.
Okay. The movie assumes so.
Very much so.
Well, I guess that's another can of worms, isn't it? Where is Camp Crystal Lake? Because that changes from movie to movie.
Yeah.
Freddy versus Jason in particular, because according to the screenwriters, they cut out the part of the movie that would show that they were in different.
That they were
parts
traveling
of the world.
a long distance.
It must, shout out to former guest of the show, Matt Aldrich. It must suck to be a screenwriter in Hollywood and have to put your work out there and then watch it after all the teeth has been
Watch
taken
it get
out of
molested. Yeah.
To the point where you're getting accused of things that in the movie, and you're like, I didn't write that.
I didn't do that. That's not
I had
mine.
a line about how that wasn't the case. They cut it out.
Oh, mercy. Also, I got a question for you.
Okay.
This Jason popping up out of the water and climbing the anchor.
Oh.
Are they going for laughs? Because it looks kind of comical.
Kane Hodder's taking it very seriously. My note here was no suspense, no mystery, just a big stuntman grappling with a rope and a barrel. That's all it is. All the mystery, all the mystique is gone from Jason in this one moment.
That's great.
He was just struggling to get on a boat, and they filmed it.
Oh, man.
And the scene in between leaving port, what you call it when you leave from a lake, isn't it just
you're
lakeside?
Leaving from a lake, and yet somehow the port is on the ocean.
There's champagne being crashed against the boat, and people waving, streamers coming down. Yeah,
I'll write you every day.
When you get to Manhattan. But we have a kind of mini scenelet which starts one of the B to C to F plots of the movie, which is the captain and his disappointing son.
That's what I wrote down. I wrote disappointed Captain Dad.
And I don't know, obviously, nothing in the scene reminded me of anything that we've seen in a Friday the 13th movie before, and I was like, well, what is this like? And my two comparisons were, it's somewhere between Happy Days and Gilligan's Island. Either way, it feels like much more of a sitcom than it should.
Yeah.
This is a very special
very
episode
Happy Days.
of Gilligan's Island. And this is where, as it leaves, you realize that the ship's called ship, boat. We could call it whatever. Vessel, submarine. I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's not defined what it is.
No.
It's called Lazarus, which is
right.
Of the two ironically named vessels in the movies we're going to cover, this is the more on the nose of the two, I think.
Right.
We've got the SS Grendel in...
The Grendel one is the one that really makes me laugh because I think Todd Farmer was trying to show off his intelligence.
Yeah, it's more of a deep cut, but it's more of a deep cut. This is just who famously rose from the dead? Lazarus. Okay. Right, we put it in the movie.
Perfect.
But it's I mean, this is 89?
Yeah.
So we're warming up to postmodern irony.
Yeah.
At least in the MTV music video sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
And I think touches like that are starting to... Easter eggs like that are starting to show that postmodern irony is going to play a bigger role in the next few movies than it has traditionally in the series.
Right.
I mean, we've had irony in the series before with Jason Lives, and a little bit in Part 4, but that's more sort of more like parody, pastiche kind of slapstick. This is like, you know, the what eventually led to the Scream version of the horror movie.
Yeah, right.
But it's just hints of it here and there, and really more of it coming out of the phenomenon of MTV. Yeah,
I would agree with that.
I think, because that's the strongest influence, I think, on this movie. Like the youth culture surrounding MTV music videos seems to have permeated this movie, this franchise for the first time in this movie, because we get a kind of series of music videos coming up.
Boy, do we! That shows that's heavy MTV influence.
Yes,
but before that, it also felt to me, I there's this thing with Rennie. Like Rennie is our lead final girl in this movie. And she clearly has a problem, but the director seems intent on keeping it from the audience.
My God.
For quite
no
some time.
Reason.
Yeah, for no reason. Exactly.
Well, all her it's interesting, like, it's all her connections were misled. We think this character is her mother. It turns out to be a sympathetic teacher. And we find out that the less sympathetic teacher was her uncle. And then we don't even get into the fact that she essentially knows Jason. She had a previous run into Jason, and with minutes left to go in the movie, we find this out.
Right.
So it does seem like the director and writer, if I may use that term, are trying to keep a lid on this, but I don't get what their end game is. I don't get what is added by keeping it a secret for so long. I mean,
it makes
that's
no
true
sense.
of most. That's true of most screenwriting. Like, hiding the ball from audiences is generally overall a bad idea. Sometimes it can be done well enough that it justifies itself. For the most part, it's a bad idea. But if you, in the hands of these filmmakers, they don't have the fine touch to pull a trick like that on the viewer. I think.
Agreed.
It just feels like they waited too long to tell us.
All right. Well, we're about to get our first kills. Well, not our first kills, but our first kills on the boat. Why don't we...
Our first non-yacht kills, yes.
Our first non-yacht kills. Why don't we take a break, and then we'll come back?
Absolutely.
All right. Right after this, everyone.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here, sussing out the long trip to Manhattan in Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan.
Now that you've said your joke about Jason takes Manhattan eventually, my joke was going to be that the title should be Jason Gets to Manhattan. Would be a more accurate title.
Because
then the movie wouldn't. wouldn't be over promising.
Yeah.
It wouldn't feel like as much of an overreach as it eventually, because then the viewer would go, well, the title warned me. By the way, I don't know, Crystal Lake Memories made me look up the trailer to this movie, which is incredible. The Jason looking at the bright lights of New York to the strains of Frank Sinatra's New York, New York is.
I remember that.
Oh, you remember that? Like,
yeah.
at the actual time of release. That's what I mean. That's one of the all-time great trailers. I think.
It's
certainly
great
in horror movies.
And I like, fuck, man, the ratings board. Just leave the poster alone. That dripping bloody knife.
Again, in a few years, no one's going to give a shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you think about, I always think about what's going on here with censorship versus now with like movies like Terrifier 2, which, you know, even I am not going to go anywhere near. I love horror movies. I'm not going to see that movie. I'm not going to subject myself to whatever's in that movie that makes people throw up when they go and see it. Why would I subject myself to that? Or Human Centipede or something like that.
Yeah, Human Centipede, right.
Why would I do that to myself?
Even I haven't seen Human Centipede. But
you've seen Human Centipede 2. We're going to have to do Human Centipede 2 one day,
at some point we're going to have to watch it. And then for the Patreon, there will be.
Isn't there a Key and Peele sketch about complaining about where you are in the Human Centipede?
I think sure you're right, yeah.
Yeah. My next note is about how, ironically, the kids who are on the boat are participating in more camp activities than we've ever seen in the actual holiday camp in any of these movies. Like, at the camp, they have access to, you know, all these different activities that they could do, and all they do is fucking smoke weed.
Right.
Once they get on a boat, it's like shuffleboard time, you know? It's boxing club, shuffleboard. Right. And then New York appears in jewelry form.
Yes.
It's just like, it's like at this point we've talked about...
It's a tease.
Yeah, another tease. We've talked about and seen New York in memorabilia form more than we've actually shown it on screen. And this is, I mean, we got to talk about Uncle Charles.
Next note... Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, well, we can go to your next note. I want to have a discussion about this, both actor and character.
Yeah.
But
I just noticed that my next note is because the guitar girl gets killed.
Yeah. And she's filming a music video while she gets killed, right?
No, she thinks she should be filming a music video, but
she says that. Okay,
but it's shot as though it's.
Well, she commented. She said this would be great for a music video, and then she pretends she's in one.
Right.
And then we introduce Jason into that.
By the way, all Foley work on Jason footsteps, hot and heavy. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't. I want to go back now and listen to it, but is it like boom, 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 boom?
It's like grunk, 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 grunk.
Maybe they just couldn't get that off the... Maybe that's not Foley work. They just couldn't get Kane Hodder's clomping off the soundtrack.
Could you step a little bit lighter on the next take?
What?
And because
I can't hear you. I'm walking.
Not even that. He would just turn and look at him menacingly because he's just the method actor always in character. It's like, oh, okay, so you're going to do your own thing. Nobody else matters. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's the sense I get. Although there is that great story he tells, which I'm sure didn't happen, about him being like heckled while he was filming this, and he did a slow head turn towards the people who were heckling him in Times Square, and they
went nuts.
In his version of it, ran away or whatever. Like they.
I thought it was more like the entire crowd cheered him.
I thought it was that
and gave him adoring love.
I think his spin on that's probably what happened, but in his spin on the story, it's like they were so intimidated they immediately shot themselves in the head or whatever because he was just so intimidating.
My favorite of his spins is for Freddy
took
versus
cyanide pills.
My favorite of it, yeah. My favorite of his spins is for Freddy versus Jason, which he was not in, when he looked at the
Yeah.
performance and said, yeah, he's not doing anything special, so yeah, it should have been me.
Well, he's kind of he's kind of given away the game on that one, doesn't he? It's like, well, if it's not a particularly good Jason, then I can do it. Yeah, well, we also, before we get to, is it JJ who is the girl with the guitar who gets
Good question.
killed in her imaginary music video? And but before that, she's being filmed on camcorder on the deck of the boat. And
Right.
I'm like, oh look, found footage horror.
Right.
It's like once the camcorder becomes a thing in American life, of course people are gonna start using it for horror purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're not at this point. They're just going, oh look, I have a camcorder. A camcorder is a thing that now exists.
Yeah.
But it will eventually become how most horror movies are filmed.
Hey, I got a question for you, going way, way back, because we're talking about Kane Hodder.
Part 2.
Well, I think, was this the first time? Was Kane Hodder top billing last movie, or was it this movie?
Top billing, I don't know, but he was named. It was Kane Hodder as Jason in the last one.
I think it's this movie where the credits list him first, and I
Could
thought,
be.
Jesus, it's a bit much.
It is a bit much. It's unnecessary. Unnecessary recognition. So, Uncle Charles.
Yes. Peter Mark Richmond.
Now, so I every time I watch this movie, I'm like, oh, where do I know him from? Where do I know this guy from? And you know, when I looked up his resume, and then they talked about it in Crystal Lake Memories, and it's like, what's he done? Episodes of The Twilight Zone? Maybe I've seen the ones he's in.
Yeah.
Dynasty. It's like, yeah, my grandma watched that, but that's not where I would have recognized him from. So he's in the season finale of the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where he plays a late 20th century stockbroker who is thawed out of cryogenic preservation on the Enterprise. And
Okay.
so the final episode is basically like you've got like a Texan guy, like a Texan millionaire, all these rich people who froze themselves in the late 20th century, and they're reanimated on the Enterprise. And this was like, basically, they got to the end of the season, they thought they were being cancelled. Gene Roddenberry wanted one more statement of like, my vision of the future, how is it different from now?
Right.
And they did it through the storyline of these late 20th century jerks being reanimated and wondering, you know, where all the capitalism gone, basically. And he plays exactly the same character in that.
Okay.
To the point where there's a let's say famous, in Star Trek terms, famous scene where Picard is negotiating with a you know, hostile alien on the view screen of the bridge, and this stockbroker who's just wandering around the ship aimlessly comes on board the Enterprise and sees Picard negotiating, and he's like, okay, so the hope's not all lost. We still know how to do like tough negotiations. And he's giving him advice from the back. He's like, he's trying to bluff you. It's because he's a stockbroker CEO. And he brings all of that energy in here. So it's like basically the same character. So
I'm just seeing now that he's been in our life before. He was in Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear.
who does he play in that?
Plays Dunwell. I'm having a vague notion of
No, I don't remember that at all.
Tuxedo.
Because he's like a low rent Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know that one is Robert Goulet, but still,
Yeah.
he could have conceivably
in that
been.
movie, you're right.
He could have conceivably been the surrogate for Ricardo Montalban in Naked Gun 2.5. Hey, we're gonna get to, with the reboot coming out, we're gonna get to do the original and reboot of Naked Gun. the Liam Neeson reboot of Naked
That's
Gun.
right. Yeah.
So that's in our future.
I love it.
Well, I don't love the idea of that, but I love the
No,
idea
yeah,
that
yeah.
we're able to go back to it.
You know, it's funny because he also seems like the kind of actor that would have been in, like, Hammer horror kind of movies. Doesn't he?
Well, there's a lot of... I think Dynasty...
Yeah.
That's that kind of... Because that's not just soap opera acting, it's that kind of... Because they were like soap operas plus... It was like the A-Team meets Days of Our Lives, right?
Yeah,
So it was like...
yeah.
There were primetime soap operas where you get everything in a soap opera, but occasionally there'd be a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
I think... Is it Dynasty that had the original Blood Wedding? Like where
really?
a wedding that was interrupted by a terrorist attack and it killed off like 50% of the cast.
I don't remember that. No.
I think it was Dynasty.
That's great.
Yeah. And also, so another limitation of Jason in these scenes is that there's no attempt to conceal himself around the ship. There's no lurking, there's no hiding. Mm-hmm. He's just walking around the deck in full view at all times. Full view. Luckily, there's only 6 to 8 people on this boat. On this boat that normally like seats normally sleeps 2,000.
Yeah.
It seems at times.
It seems as though the boat company missed the mark on this, inviting the high school.
Right. They didn't realize it was quite a smaller high school as it was. But a level of continuity with the last movie is that we're starting to find out that Rennie is sort of a psychic.
Kind of. It feels...
She's a bit paranormal.
Yeah. But
because she can keep seeing Jason as a boy in the cabin window.
Yes, and everywhere else. At one point I wrote a note that says, "Does the dog see visions too?"
Right.
Because there was something going on where the dog was there and then the boy appeared, I think.
And I wonder
maybe
how
the dog looked at it. I forget.
Well, the dogs always know. I wonder how much of it was a hangover from Part 7, where they were like, we kind of like this idea of the spooky final girl. Yeah. Let's reintroduce a little bit of that, because I guess you could just say that because she's been. I guess if you read back when they finally tell you that she's had a run-in with Jason, this is just PTSD, right? This is just like,
right.
Although she wasn't around when he was. I'm going to be very careful here not to open another timeline can of worms, but she definitely wasn't around when he drowned the first time, right?
No.
Which is what she's seeing here.
Yeah.
So that's not PTSD. That's. I don't know.
Psychic ability
to see through time. Psychic ability through time. So yeah, we've got our archetypes coming back.
I was just gonna say, we're trying to introduce the people. We have the jock. We have the cool girls who are doing cocaine.
Yep, the sex mad woman.
Yeah.
The film nerd.
Right.
This time he's a film school.
And then the rocker girl, who, like we said, she got
more
murdered
film experience
quick.
Than the director. Yes.
Yeah.
And more fake out Jason vision.
Yeah, there's lots of boy Jason like grabbing her. Sean is the boyfriend for this movie, right? He's the disappointed captain boy.
Well, he's the cap. I mean, he's soon to be the captain.
True.
Of the ship, he's going to be. No, Gilligan wasn't the captain, was he? There was a separate captain.
Yeah, no.
Was Gilligan a captain?
Hell no.
There was a Gilligan. I mean, it's all in the opening theme tune. I could just. No, but the opening theme tune. No, I was listening to a radio show. It was Tom Waits and Iggy Pop playing, and Tom Waits had brought all these tracks he wanted Iggy Pop to play on his radio show, and Tom Waits brought in the theme to Gilligan's Island. And they had a good 10-minute discussion about the history of that song. How originally it just gave the backstory of Gilligan. And then the other actors complained that the backstory to their characters wasn't in the theme tune, so they made the theme tune even longer and added a verse. because the actors was complaining that their backstory wasn't represented in the theme song
That's
of
fantastic.
the show. But anyway.
The movie star.
Exactly, yeah. So if you go to early season, like the first season of Gilligan's Island, it doesn't have that second verse in it.
Oh, wow.
They had to campaign for that. They had to negotiate for it. but basically, like, the tropes are sort of even the inversions are becoming predictable. So whenever you see something that looks like Jason Vision, you know it's not going to be Jason. It's going to be someone else. So it's rarer when it actually is Jason at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The odds are not. The odds are against it being Jason.
It's probable it won't be him.
Yeah. And my next note is just a deliciously bad scene, which is the biology project conference in the Uncle Charles's cabin.
Okay, yeah.
First of all, another wrinkle of these graduates going to Manhattan. Do you still have to hand in assignments after you've graduated? Is that an American thing in high school where you're like, I've graduated high school. Your biology project is due Monday. No. I graduated high school. I'm free of this now. It sounds like a nightmare if you have to keep submitting work after you graduate. No?
Yeah, it's not really a thing, but doing the big trip thing could happen before you actually graduated.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, I'll allow it.
Like we went to Disneyland.
But tread carefully, counselor.
Okay.
Oh, go on. Go. If you have experience of it, I want to hear about it.
I remember it for 8th grade and 12th grade, we got to go to Disneyland, but you didn't go after you graduated. It was like, in the coming weeks to graduation, you had a grad night, you did this, we had a couple of them where one was we stayed overnight in the gym and one was we went to Disneyland.
Okay.
It was like they set up a carnival kind of a thing in the gym.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because I don't think they're the same in terms of field trips, right? You stay where you are and not go back to your homes. The alternative, and then you go to Disneyland. Okay, well, I'll say, so I'll let that pass.
All right, then.
And then the rest of it is just about how utterly inappropriate this all is.
Oh, yeah.
And it's never quite made clear how rapey Uncle Charles is.
And also, it also didn't seem like it was made clear in the behind the scenes talking about it on Camp Crystal Lake Memories.
Oh yeah, you got the sense that the actor was way more up for it than the filmmakers were filming it.
Yeah.
And certainly whoever was playing the character would have been.
Ugh.
But she does it all essentially to blackmail him because,
right?
Even though they're graduates, she has yet to graduate, so she's got to get this biology mark, and rather than
apparently
do the hours worth of study that would get her the
she had to know enough biology to know where the heart is and where the stomach is.
Yeah. Right.
And that's about it.
She did more work in this blackmail setup than she would have needed to do to get a passing grade in her biology project.
Yes.
So this scene, and she jumps him in the bed. He's into it for about 10 seconds, and then he realizes who he is and where he is. And I wonder whether they were like, whether this was a fake out, where they were like, it's like this was gonna be his Achilles heel. Until we decided we needed to save Uncle Charles, we needed to demonize Uncle Charles in a different way. So
yeah, right. We had to make him be a piece of shit some other way.
Right, because it's sort of like if he's a pedophile and he threw his niece in the lake,
right.
It would almost be
too much to bear.
It's too much to bear. So it's a very strange scene, and I gotta say the do-over in Jason X of this is much better.
Oh yeah.
But it's also better because the memory of this is kind of built into it. It's like an ironic reenactment of this scene. because this scene, I don't know if it works quite as... I don't know if it should be in the movie, and I don't know whether it works as well as it should.
No, yeah. I mean, plus she's, because she's got to rope in an accomplice, and...
Well, he's got a camcorder as well, which is like,
right.
giving ideas to blackmailers everywhere about how to use new technology to blackmail people.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and the biology.
But then we
project
do
scene.
something different because what's her name? Tamara, who is doing the tricking of McCullough.
Oh, okay. Yes, could be.
And when she goes to take a shower, we have a different view that we don't see very often in these types of movies, where she sees the killer before he sees her.
Yeah, we have a tradition in Friday the 13th of an homage to the Psycho shower scene, and we never know quite which way it's going to go, because sometimes it's a straight homage, and sometimes it's a variation on it.
Yeah.
So that's the suspenseful part, is like, what are they going to do with the Psycho scene in this movie? And here, they just kind of like, they stop it before it even gets going.
No, yeah, we don't get near the shower except to.
So because Jason hates mirrors, which I don't know if we've established up until this point, but even with the mask on, he hates mirrors. Because I thought there was something so far about he doesn't like having the mask taken off, although that was the last movie did that. So what is he disgusted by? Hockey? Oh no, I've been wearing a hockey mask all this time. I'm a baseball player.
Where's my sack? Somebody give me my sack back.
Yeah, he misses the pillowcase. Yeah. So this is where we get the estranged father. So it's this micro tragedy of the captain of the ship is like, oh, I've mistreated my son, and then he dies before he's able to tell the son how proud he is of him.
Right.
Although it seemed in the previous scene that he doesn't seem to have that level of, like you think that for him to come to this realization, I don't know, hours after he told his son he was the worst human being that exists in the world, you'd think there'd be a little bit of hesitation there, or like he would do that uncomfortably. It seems like he really wants to humiliate his son in front of everyone in that scene.
Right.
And then a few hours later, he's like, oh, I made a huge mistake. There's nothing better in the world than having a son, and don't waste it. And then he dies before he could tell his son that. But again, as with the last movie, you're well short of a father like this. Right? It's sort of like, this father's more trouble than he's worth. Because if he can turn on a dime like that in his kind of affection, for going from zero affection to sentimentality, there's something wrong with him, and he's going to fuck you up for the rest of your life. So, yeah.
I couldn't help but notice
0 to 10
that the captain was killed with the wrong side of the machete.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Again, maybe they don't have knife sharpening in their budget, so Kane Hodder's like, I'm going to use this end because the other end's getting pretty worn.
Right before that, I mean, this is stupid and just the smallest note, but I think it's McCullough. I think it's Charlie McCullough. Somebody asked something about a baby's age, and they say 19 months, and he says 19 months. That's a tremendous age.
Yeah. 19 months. Even the timeline of baby's lives doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense anything in this movie.
They should stay away from any numbers or time of any kind in these movies. But and this is where briefly the movie becomes Lord of the Flies, right? Because the children have to become the crew of the ship,
right?
They're having to fend for themselves.
There's own.
There's the weirdest kind of mini murder mystery here, where even though the audience knows it's Jason going around killing them all, the characters in the movie suspect it could be someone on
The
the
deckhand.
ship.
The handsome deckhand.
The deckhand, Uncle Charles as well. They suspect him.
Or also, yeah, they suspect Charles. They also suspect the new Crazy Ralph.
But the audience already knows it's Jason. There's no mystery to be had here. Again, it just feels like something more that the cast can do while we're waiting to get to New York, and it's very frustrating.
And it's weird too, because in the murder mystery fashion, we've had a lot of murders. The boxer got the sauna coal in his stomach.
Oh, the sauna! We skipped over the sauna. That was one of my "how big is this boat" notes. If it can have a sauna.
If it can have a sauna, yeah.
And it turns out, according to Crystal Lake Memories, they literally didn't think about that. They were just like, so we added a sauna because we wanted to have a sauna kill.
We wanted a sauna kill.
So it's just basically the ship is like the TARDIS.
Mm-hmm.
The interior is however big you want it to be, with whatever in it that you need for the story.
But in every murder mystery, you have to balance how many people are killed, how long it takes others to find the bodies.
Yeah.
And in this movie, people are killed, like she's killed with the axe guitar, he's killed with the sauna stones, and nobody ever finds them ever.
Yeah.
And then Sean's dad, the captain, gets murdered, and he finds him like 30 seconds later. He's like, everybody get to the fucking front of this boat. And they have to make a plan. And that's when, what's the boxer's name?
Julius,
that's right.
Yeah, and that was another one of my notes, that we're not quite there in terms of people of color in these movies being heroes, but in this movie they're a lot harder to kill than they have traditionally been in the series.
Yeah, that's true.
They live a lot longer. Julius makes it out of the boat, and what's the name of the Asian girl who
Eva. Kelly who?
Eva. She makes it, she kind of fights back for a while, and she makes it longer than quite a few of them do, until she's murdered she's in the rock disco trap.
Yeah, I got questions about that murder, because it seems as though Jason can teleport now.
Right.
She's seeing him in different parts of the room. He's appearing and disappearing in different ways.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there.
But this is your other music video, right? This is pure music video.
Yeah.
Like, you could cut it off and turn it into a music video.
There's a shot where Ava's running around the boat. She finds her friend Tamara, and then Jason finds her.
Okay.
Jason's in the background, she's in the foreground, and she sees him and turns and runs towards camera, around a corner and up the stairs, and the camera kind of backs up with her and then starts following up the stairs a little bit, and then they cut. But it was the one time where I thought, hey, cool shot.
Yeah. Oh,
you don't get a lot of those in this particular movie.
No, but there's a couple of them in this scene, because it's almost a shame there's so much strobe light and music in the scene, because I think otherwise the slow strangle death could have been very effective.
Yeah, right.
Because that's we haven't seen that kind of premeditated, prolonged killing.
That was another sad moment in the Camp Crystal Lake Memories. I mean, I guess it was of her own doing, because Kelly Hughes said, they were doing that one shot, and she said, just throw me to the ground. And, of course, Hodder was like, sure.
I think he claims he said, are you sure? But
yeah.
I bet there'd be a Rashomon version of that story where it didn't go down quite as he said.
Right. Well, and then on top of it,
isn't this the movie with where he pulled out a dildo
in his pants? I think on the yacht.
Okay.
He had a dildo in his pants.
So, I mean, that's cancelable behavior now.
Mm-hmm.
That's why John Barrowman isn't in anything anymore. Except he did it with his actual penis, but anyway. Oh, lawyer's calling again. Hang on, I gotta take this. Some reason they have a live feed going whenever we record a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, and night vision camera. We get night vision camcorder in this movie.
Right.
Which, I mean, Silence of the Lambs is what, 91, 92?
90.
90, okay. So, is Silence of the Lambs night vision homage to this?
No, wait, it is 91.
Well, either way, this came out first.
There you go.
And I mean, I think basically, I know Silence of the Lambs kind of is the most famous use of it, but camcorders came with night vision settings, and then horror movies were just all over it. They were like,
co-opted.
We got to use this. Yeah, got to co-op this as soon as we can. But this was one of the first to get that.
But I like the moment where Julius, he's found all the weapons on the boat. And he says, "Take what you want." And everybody chooses their weapon, including one no-name person that we don't even know who it is. His choice is a ball-peen hammer.
Oh, fantastic.
Leaving Julius to say, "I'll take this," which is a shotgun. I love that somebody would go, "No shotgun, give me that ball-peen hammer."
But if he takes the shotgun, Julius will be like, "Accept the shotgun. Shotgun's
right.
Mine. It's the end of the scene. I'm going to pick up the shotgun."
Yeah, there's a good line in there, too, because they all choose their weapons, and one of them says, "What are you taking, Julius?" And he says, "Nothing but this gun." Then he picks up the shotgun. Now, Wayne is the camcorder nerd, right?
I think so, yes.
Because he, not that he lives too long, but however long he lives, he has to live with the nightmare of killing an innocent deckhand.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Peeping Tom.
Yeah.
With the camera in his hand. At some point we go back to the bridge. Where is it Sean who's trying to figure out how this naval computer system works? Yeah, this kind of like it's this computer. Basically, it's like in Speed 2.
He does seem baffled by it.
Well, spoiler alert for a credit check. This is a real piece of Navy equipment that they hired. This computer. But it's clear, as it is in Speed 2, that the characters, the actors, and the filmmakers don't know what this is. And so what they have is they just have him fiddling about with it, turning and going, "It works." No one in that room understands how this works. So we're just telling the audience that we fixed whatever the problem was. And I was amazed to find out that they hired a real piece of naval computer equipment just for that. Like,
that's great.
If it doesn't matter, if the audience don't know what it's supposed to do, you could put anything there. It could have been one of the big turny wheels you get in old-timey ships.
I love those.
Yeah. I mean, who the fuck cares? I mean, that must have... They must have sunk a lot of money into hiring that, if that's the real thing. Also, some fucking Naval Reserve guy in the audience could go, "Oh, yeah.
Hey!
Worked with one of those on Tuesday." Yeah.
I worked with that. That's my thing. I used that on the boat. I also liked, there felt a connection in the Wayne killing where Jason throws him on that, computer board. And the sparks start flying. It felt very much like Bucky getting himself dead in Halloween 4.
Oh yeah, and also, like the moment where Kane Hodder is watching someone else on fire, and he does his best acting at that moment, and I'm sure that's him remembering the time that he was on fire.
Yes,
the several times that he was on fire. The one time he nearly died, and I feel like he chose that just so someone else would have to do it.
Actually, I kind of like that shot too because they have a real close-up shot on Jason's mask face with the sparks flying on it.
Yeah. So there's lots of very personal deaths for Jason in this scene, because he impales people, like he got impaled. He throws people in the water, like happened to him when he was a kid.
Right.
So he's subjecting victims to what he was subjected to in his many deaths. But there's this boy ghost following him around for the first time, which is this brand new twist on the Jason mythology. And it's interesting, right? Basically, from part 6 onwards, there's your 6, 7, and 8 are mythology heavy. Each of them working overtime to create new mythology, and then kind of rewriting that mythology and supplementing it.
I mean, 9 is the most heavy-handed rewriting of mythology.
Yeah, so it keeps going. It's like once they started creating the mythology, they couldn't stop.
Yeah.
It took them to part 6 to get there, and then when they get to part 6, it's like they just like open the floodgates of mythology.
It's a potpourri. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, Jason is like Lenny from The Simpsons with his eye. You know what I mean? It's like his major vulnerability is his total Achilles heel. If you get something in his eye, you're basically all over for him. Not supposed to get pudding in it.
Because he stabs with the he gets stabbed with that Stephen King pen.
The Stephen King, right? The power of Stephen King compels you.
I did like the eye ooze though.
The eye ooze?
She stabs him and a bunch of goo kind of oozes out of the eye hole.
Oh, okay, yeah. Eye ooze. I see. I thought you meant he went "Ayu" when he was stabbed in the eye, which I wouldn't put it past Kane Hodder.
Wouldn't put it past him, no, yeah.
And we're moving through these kills so quickly. It's like it feels like we're in the final act, but we're only in the final act because we have a whole third of the movie we have to do in Manhattan.
Yeah, right.
So this is the final act of this movie, and then the rest of the movie is going to restart in Manhattan.
Well, there's so much so that at one point the teacher that we thought was her mother is like shuffling kids through the yacht, and you realize I haven't seen any of these children before.
Yeah. Yeah. And still trying to make Sea Ralph a threat.
Yes.
Even though we know it's Jason doing the killing. And isn't his flare gun jam? Or is it Uncle Charles who tries to shoot him with the flare gun?
Yeah.
And it's jammed?
Mm-hmm.
Presumably because they're not going back. They don't want any more pyrotechnics in this in this production after what.
You know who Uncle Charles actually? You said low rent. He's like a low rent Christopher Lee too.
Very low rent Christopher Lee.
Yeah, very. But tall, thin.
I mean, yeah, he's too. I think it's like soap opera authority figure. Is what we get from him.
Absolutely.
Which fits his resume. And then, so they all make it into a lifeboat.
Right. While Jason watches from above.
Right. At which point I'm like, this movie is so different from the one we were promised.
I know.
Because, like, we're not far away from New York, but we still got to do the lifeboat segment before we get there. Like, it's
right.
It's all kinds of prevarication. Even when we get off the boat, we're still not going to get to New York. I mean, and to be fair, I mean, we'll get there, but I guess the final segment of this episode should be just the New York section.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break in a moment here, and we're going to come back for the movie we were promised.
Which is just ludicrous.
Well, do you have anything else to say about the lifeboat?
Well,
there's not much that happens on it.
No, not really. I mean, I guess the only thing is, obviously they see the Statue of Liberty. Just the fact that they react to New York as if they're refugees.
Yeah.
Or right. 19th century immigrants or something. It's like, all that happened was your boat, you know, you had to abandon ship and in a lifeboat for a couple of minutes. I mean, you know.
Our time.
Yeah, sure.
They make it seem like they're super tired, like they were rowing a while.
Yeah. I think that's probably where we leave it, because I think my next note is about Jason following them. So I think we want to. That's
I have questions.
Bigger discussion. I have some questions too.
All right, we'll take that break then, and we'll come right back, everybody, right after this. Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here trying to get to the portion of the movie we thought we'd have all along.
Yeah.
Finishing up with Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, directed by Rob Hedden.
Can you imagine if all movies worked like that, where the last word of the title would also be the last scene of the movie? Like, you'd have to wait the whole movie to get to the last word of the title.
Yep.
Like Raiders of the Lost Ark, so you'd only see the Ark. I guess that is how it works. So that you only see the Ark in the final scene. That's kind of true. That's how it happened. That's exactly what happens. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all films work that way.
Maybe that's the way it's supposed to be.
Or I just
we should
picked the
reserve
worst
our
possible
terrible
example.
judgment. Yeah, let's calm down. So, what's going on here?
So
did he hitch a ride on a dolphin?
No, I mean, speaking of Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, it's like Indiana Jones riding the submarine all the way to the island.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this is
more
my
like
reading of
it's
it.
more like Last Crusade. He jumps in the water and gets back somehow.
Yeah, this is the way I read it. Jason has been in the lake enough in his life. He's now essentially a water creature.
Mm-hmm.
So he swam to New York. I mean.
Oh, how great would it have been if there was just one underwater establishing shot of him like Michael Phelps doing that, you know, kind of mermaid kick under the water.
The only problem with that is, again, it kind of ruins the premise of the movie, because the premise of the movie is like Jason has to go to New York. It's like, well, if he can swim, kind of go there anytime he wants. He can swim back and forth from Crystal Lake to Manhattan anytime he wants. So it spoils that aspect of it, but it didn't bump me as much as it probably should, because I just assumed that he's now more fish than man, because he's been under the lake for
every time I watch it,
time.
When he starts climbing the up the side of that dock, I think, well, he got there somehow.
Yeah. They shouldn't have even shown him getting out of the water. He should have just arrived.
Right.
The first time we seen him, we should have been creeping up on someone. Because at that point, once you introduce the idea that he came by water, that's where the problems come in.
Yes.
Because it still, subscribes to your teleport theory.
He's moving around a lot.
Yeah. And this is the other thing about, obviously, we're in Manhattan now. Let's start there. Manhattan by way of Vancouver. Yeah. But we won't get into anything that looks like, well, New York ever, but certainly for a while.
Yeah, right. And
part of it is that we have this kind of no man's land of the Docklands.
One of my notes is that they were starting to get thwarted by famous dock muggers. Because if you're a mugger, you want to hang around at the docks in case anybody.
That's my exact note.
Comes
I was
along.
like, it seems like the last place muggers will be waiting for people to come by because it's so desolate. They'd be waiting all day long. Also, I've got questions about the appearance of these muggers. I can't tell if they're supposed to be Hispanic or Romani.
Well.
All I know is that there's a lot of racial stereotypes going on here. I just don't know which ones. I just don't know which specific stereotypes they're embodying.
Well, now, what do you have to say about this head tilt, this Michael Myers head tilt?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me about that. I mean, it's certainly what Kane Hodder's acting has been heading to, down to the point that I made a note that, in the last movie he's doing everything but a head tilt, forgetting that that's what he does in this movie. Yeah, and also, isn't there a kind of isn't this where he releases a breath as if he's been holding his breath the entire time?
Oh, I don't remember hearing that. No. Really?
When he gets out of the water, like he starts breathing as if he's like got fish-like gills or something at this point that he can breathe underwater. Yeah, so my thoughts about it is it's they were trying to. I mean, I've no objection to the light-hearted. He sees himself on a poster, and goes, "What?" But to do it in a way that apes Halloween, to me, is even more on the nose than this series usually is about those references.
Right.
Almost to the point where it's almost like nobody connected the dots, as opposed
also,
to to make a reference to Halloween.
Because he has the Michael Myers head tilt and then looks directly down the barrel of the camera, I think. Like, turns around towards the camera, doesn't he?
I think you're probably right, yeah.
It goes to the majority. This theory we're coming up with here is that he's not a good actor. And I think the joke would even be funnier if he just looks up, has no reaction, and keeps walking.
But yeah, and
in
the
true
other thing
kind
is,
of more Jason fashion, and then the camera kind of raises
right
up to show the billboard.
That'd be better. And also, again, there's nothing New York about this.
Right. No. Yeah.
Because even though it says like New York Hockey League, I mean that's not what New York is known for. So
you could at least make it about the Rangers, the actual hockey team from New York.
But even that is a bit of a stretch, and I feel like there's a moment coming up which is much more effective, feels much more like this is a set piece you could only do in New York.
Yeah.
This you could slip into any of these movies, theoretically.
Sure.
So I think I think it should have been omitted.
Agreed. Also, there's oh, I forgot about this. There's an amazing line from Charles when, like, the shit comes down and Jason appears. All of a sudden, everybody's thinking to themselves, "Fuck, Jason's here," and he says these words out loud: "We'll be more productive if we split up."
Yeah. Wow.
Love it.
That's as on the nose as it gets.
But Jason saves Rennie from rape.
Yeah, not from drugging. She's going to be addicted to heroin.
She is going to be drugged. Correct.
It's so funny that the movie decides to complete that, to have him not intervene before that point. I mean, that's she's high for the rest of the movie.
Yes.
And there's no.
But she only seems high for the next 4 to 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah. So Jason is sort of I think the idea is, and I think it's a great idea, that once Jason gets to Manhattan, he would be considered a hero.
Right? Yes.
Because he's killing people that need to be killed, finally.
Yeah.
So, and he's fighting urban crime. I say urban, I mean, of course, Dockland crime. But as close as we've got to urban crime so far.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know the exact geography of Manhattan, but I don't think you leave the docks and then it's just Broadway.
City.
It goes docks, freeway bridge, Broadway. That's how it. That's how it seems to be.
Oh, mercy.
And probably my favorite part of the movie is coming up here. It's the sequence with Jason and Julius.
Yeah.
The rope-a-dope.
Very good.
Even though Julius should, we saw that he trains as a boxer, so he should have heard of the rope-a-dope technique by now and should realize that that's what's being done to him. It's like you'd feel like someone would have shown him the footage from Rumble in the Jungle and been like, "See what Muhammad Ali's doing here? It's called rope-a-dope." He got his opponent so tired he could just knock him out with a single.
Do you feel yourself getting tired? You're the one in trouble.
He should have been punching Jason going, "This feels awfully familiar. It seems like I'm winning, but I don't think I am." But honestly, the punchline of literally punching his head off is, it's the highlight of the movie. I can't imagine what it... You didn't see this in the movie theater, right?
No, I didn't see this one in the theater.
I can't imagine the laugh this would have got, because
huge. Had to have been. What
a crowd pleaser, I think. And it's timed and executed really well. I mean, I get why this guy wanted the director wanted the movie to be all of this. Because if it was just wall to wall this kind of sequence, it'd be a bit mad and maybe a bit overwhelming.
But it'd be such great fun.
But you go back to it and you'd be like, what a ride.
Yeah.
What a ride this is. Because even in this conservatively 20 minutes of screen time where we have this, it's just killer set piece after killer set piece. We're getting closer to the New Yorkness of New York, the essence of New York, because we're going to meet a cop.
Yes.
Only one cop. Not sure why there's only one of them. Again, this feels
Doesn't
like post-apocalypse New York, where it's like Mad Max. There's no police left. And this is another kind of Michael Myers crossover, because I don't know, is this the first time Jason makes a joke when he puts the head inside the police car?
Yeah, right.
Has he ever... Because it doesn't give him... The difference is he's done stuff like this before, but it always gave him a tactical advantage. But this doesn't give him a tactical advantage. It's purely
No, it's just
prank.
taunting.
Yeah. And that's more of a sneaky Michael Myers thing to do.
Yeah, it is. But on top of that, there's that idea of the cop. I like that they all find each other and then the cop finds them. It's very funny to me. They all have to come together. But the other idea is, in this type of movie, when you see the cops, you usually go, "Oh, okay, so they're kind of safe. Like, they might be okay." The remake does this really well, where the cop actually shows up to the door. And then in under 5 seconds, he's strangled to death, this cop.
I would have loved it as well. I would have loved it as well if they kind of suggest that this cop's going to save them, and then he goes back to the car and he finds that his partner's being drugged and raped by a couple of gypsy muggers, and he's like, "Oh no." Steal the car battery.
There's one complication that there should have been that I don't think they answer well, because they're all put in the back of the cop car. And when the cop's killed, they get out of the back seats as though that's something you can do in a cop car.
As if that's something you could do in a cop. And this is where I thought my digital copy of the movie had gone wrong, because there's a glitchy slow motion car crash that just looks like a mistake.
Well, before that, when they run him over or try to run Jason over, there's competing shots too, because when they show the car take off from inside the car, it looks like it's gone from 0 to 90 miles per hour in under a second.
I think that might have been part of it.
When they show it approaching Jason, and when he hits the car and slowly rolls off the hood, it looks like it's going about 15 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to the speeded up version for the crash. And the explosion.
That's it. That must be the glitch.
And then the explosion, once again, great explosion, but looks like they put people's lives in danger.
Sure does.
I didn't see any, they didn't have any commentary on that one in the Camp Crystal Lake, though.
There's probably legal proceedings around that meant they couldn't include that footage. That's they went off, like, when they were doing the interviews for the movie, a bunch of them went off into another room and did a deposition.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is this the talking head for the documentary, or is this part of the deposition? Okay. Because I gotta give you different answers based on that.
Yeah. And then we have the evil McCullough flashback, right? He's like...
right, yeah,
he's a Whiplash swim coach?
Yeah, so, well, we go into the dream puddle, which feels very Nightmare on Elm Street, even before we get into Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah.
And, yeah, 20 minutes from the end, this flashback reveals to us that she, the principal, and Jason are all connected. And this was another one of my timeline fatigue moments. I was like, I know this changes everything, but it's just too much to keep track of at this point. Because I think, I'm just going to say this. Previous to this movie, I was under the impression that Jason got out of that lake
and was just walking around
and went to the woods and became a woods person, right?
Yeah.
Despite the dream, I think you have to believe that at the end of Friday the 13th, that was a dream for that to be true. Otherwise, he's still in the lake, and then he just gets out and dusts, wipes himself off, puts a bag on his head, and starts killing people. But he's still a boy in that.
But this movie tells you...
This movie tells you that he's a boy covered in crud.
He's been under the water this whole time, waiting for one girl to have a terrible uncle.
Yeah, right. So he's now the frog boy until he came out of the lake, grew big very quickly, and then got resurrected. And then went back in and then got resurrected. There's a really nice touch, which again reminds me of the stockbroker character he plays in that episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, is that when the principal is like he's lying in an alleyway, and he's covered in, like, there's all this shredded paper around him.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, it's like, like some stockbroker destroying evidence of their insider trading, and they shredded it and taken it down to the docks. Like, it's a really nice, that feels very New York.
How great would it have been if Michael Douglas as Gordon Gekko just walked by and said, "You never saw any of this."
Or even another cameo with the two guys from Trading Place, the two brothers from Trading Places.
Ralph Bellamy.
Back on top. Ralph Bellamy and Don Amici back on top again. And we can bring this into the John Landis verse. And do an American Werewolf in London crossover.
Before he falls into that stuff, he's thrown out a window, right? We get a window crash.
Yeah. We get a window crash. Also, this again...
Before Jason tries to turn him into a chud.
Good pull, I think. See, you could have gone straight from the end of Jason... If you were going to do like a Freddy versus Jason jump scare on the end of this movie, it would be a chud coming out of the sewer.
Right.
Grabbing that dog. Yeah, so... And this is, again, this goes to the theory of this new convention of that every movie Jason/Kane Hodder has to kill the nominal villain of the piece in a fun way, and his is a toxic waste death. Yeah,
with a rat on top, floating on top.
With a rat. Now
is that the same rat from the beginning of the movie?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. They didn't pay for two different rats. Are you kidding me? I wanted to ask a general question about, similar to our discussion about how much were people generally in the 1990s concerned about Japan invading America through business culture.
Mm-hmm.
How much were people in the 80s genuinely afraid of toxic waste?
A great deal.
Because it's everywhere in 80s movies. It's the number one paranoia. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's been eclipsed by climate change as the thing that's going to get us.
Yeah.
But I
But
think in the
back
80s,
then,
it must have felt-
everybody was worried about toxic waste.
It's like, this is the thing that's gonna... And you know, go back to early Simpsons episodes, and it's very clear that that's...
On our brains.
That's the major fear with the three-eyed fish.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's more Oh no, that was that toxic waste, or was that nuclear waste?
Same thing.
Well, no, I know nuclear waste is toxic, but is toxic waste nuclear?
Okay, fine.
I don't know. Yeah, no.
Sustained.
Okay, so sidebar. So so it's trading on those fears, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Clearly. But toxic waste, toxic waste is used to kill the principal, but it's gonna come back. Anyway, we're only a few minutes away from that, but I don't want to talk about that just now. Yeah, because once I open that can of worms, I can't get it back in.
I like that our heroine is just not the drug heroine.
That she took a few minutes ago.
Yeah, our female character. I like that she's just casually sitting on couch trash, waiting for Sean to find her.
That's what you do when you arrive in New York via the dock lines. So you have a period where you just have to sit on couch trash and wait for the next bus to take you. Well, this is where we get into subways and taxi cabs. So we're starting to, 15 minutes
getting
to the end
closer
of the movie,
and closer to actual New York.
Getting closer and closer to New York iconography. It's the first distinctive New York flavor in the movie, and we're going into the final set piece.
We even have a newsstand vendor in the background.
Yeah, everything.
By the way, when Jason goes, I think he's chasing them into the subway, and he goes crashing through that front door. That glass front door. Do you notice the newsstand vendor behind him?
No.
Turning around in just absolute shock and horror.
Wow.
Of this door being crashed through. It's really funny.
You think if it was real New Yorkers, they would have done it more like Bill Murray in Ghostbusters, where, the expression doesn't even change when crazy stuff happens around them. So everything promised in the title is happening. It's just that it's the final scene, and it's all happening back to back within a matter of minutes.
Yeah, in seconds.
What? There's nothing to... I don't see what there's to complain about.
I'm starting to feel like I noticed everything going on in the background, because I noticed that that newsstand vendor, and then on the subway itself, there's a poster that says "Jason lives!" !
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, those are good Easter eggs.
Yeah.
And Jason gets
the
lightning
third rail.
Again.
He gets the third rail.
Yeah. Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 reference. There. Which is great, and a great use of the subway.
Absolutely.
But is lightning... What we've been told up to this point is lightning gives him life.
It helps him. Yeah.
It helps him, yeah. And the audience knows it. So... I don't know if it's something about, like they say New York water's got its own kind of
right.
quality.
That's the reason the bagels taste so good.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe New York lightning is he's allergic to it or something.
Because they only take a few steps away before he stands up from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Times Square. So
did you notice that there was as they come out of the subway, that there was a guy walking by who's clearly a flasher? He's got nothing on but a trench coat, and he's just skulking around.
Fantastic.
Oh, good stuff.
It's a magnificent reveal of Times Square, and boy, have we had to wait for it.
I mean, it's so good.
It's essentially a surprise ending.
Yeah, yes,
at this point,
exactly.
Right? But the film is called Jason Takes Manhattan, so it's not a surprise.
And you realize, obviously, they're working on what they probably felt was a shoestring budget at the time. They weren't going to spend money. They're not making a lot of money, these movies, no more than $15 million. But what did I say? I think they spent $5 million on this movie. And if you just, $10, $12 million and gave us more of this, they would have, they would have doubled their profit easily, I think.
Or I don't know. I another mental rewrite that I did. I don't do these with a lot the series at this point, but
Uh-huh.
this could have been your Freddy, like at the end of Jason.
Yeah.
At the end of Final Friday, we have the kind of the Freddy claw,
the
coming
claw,
out,
rather,
taking him to quote unquote hell. They could have ended the previous movie like it could have begun with him getting to New York, and then the whole of this movie, like, it would have built up anticipation.
Yeah.
It would have been like, oh, what's it gonna do in the next movie where Jason is in New York? They probably just can't have that level of foresight, but that would have been the way to do it. And then, you spend a little bit of money going to Times Square and filming those shots, and then you show that to your investors, and you're like, oh, we're gonna do a whole movie like this next.
Right.
I mean, so that might have. And to be fair, this takeover of Times Square, seeing Jason in such a famous landmark, it's really thrilling.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much too late, I think.
Including too much heavy breathing from Kane Hodder.
Right. And we finally catch up with the street punks that we saw in the title sequence.
Yes.
This finally paid off.
Dead meat. You're dead meat, slime bag.
And I like the reveal of the face to them. I like that it was, first of all, that it was not to us.
Didn't show it to us, right.
They showed it to us, but showed it to them. So that's a sharp contrast with the end of the last movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nice twist on the kind of conventions, because, it sort of shows, it's like Jason in a hurry, right?
Yeah.
He's been in Manhattan for a few hours now, and he's picking up on the the busy
I gotta make up
New
for
Yorker
time.
lifestyle. I gotta make up time. It's like, I can't kill each of these 4 people individually,
Right.
so I'm just gonna show them my face and then let them kind of talk themselves out of this.
Even in the next scene in the diner, he's gonna throw that cook around, but he'll spare the waitress. He's got to get down into the sewers.
Yeah, right, exactly. But again, it's sort of, it suggests Jason's developed a sense of humor without that feeling too much like Michael Myers' sense of humor.
Yeah,
this
right.
is more of this feels more like a Jason, I got people to kill, kind of.
I'm busy.
I got places to be.
I'm killing here. I'm killing.
I am so surprised we didn't get an I'm walking here.
Yeah.
Of all the New York cliches that the movie throws at you, that's the one that is conspicuously absent, I think.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, we go back to the Pacific Northwest themed diner.
Yes.
That's in Manhattan. And then that's it. When the movie goes into the sewers, again, I was thinking of Chud as well. I'm just like, wow, since they got to the city, this movie hasn't disappointed once.
Right.
Even the way the sewers are filmed, I'm like, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted the movie to be.
It's what I want, yeah.
Sort of a little bit Friday the 13th, a little bit Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, that's exactly what I want.
Even you were talking about how prevalent toxic waste is on our minds at this time, but then you combine that with what people thought of New York City at the time.
Yes.
Which is when they find this worker, he lets our heroes know that toxic waste is flushed out every day at midnight.
Well, this is why I'm like, is this still it's like, did it, or was this an exaggeration? Or is it like everything else where, we live in a dystopia and you have to pick your battles? Like, the world is burning to a crisp.
Yeah.
That's what's going to get us. Whether we're all mutants in that landscape doesn't really matter. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because toxic waste sort of stands in for New York. It's like,
yeah, right.
It's like when the toxic waste gets Jason, which we know is going to happen. I don't think there's any, like, when he says toxic waste is coming, we're like, oh, okay, well, that's how Jason's going to get it.
Right.
But it's like a sense, it's like the place is killing, like Manhattan is killing Jason.
It's killing him, right.
Through the sewer system as well, which of course is a iconographic of New York as well. And that, there's like that guy is dispatched in a silhouette. I'm like, this director, since he's got to Manhattan, it's like fucking Carol Reed.
Getting his shit together, right.
It's like the third man down here. It's like, is there a different director? Is this the same guy who did that MTV music video on the boat? Like,
right.
How did we get So he's obviously just in his comfort zone, which makes sense.
Well, this was all his idea.
Says,
this is what he
I
wanted the whole movie to be.
And clearly he was the right person to do that.
To do that job, which they said you can do for 1/3 of this movie. Well,
I have to say, though, they ruined their own
third.
joke. Not even a full third, yeah. They ruined their own joke with the reveal of the mask joke, because we do actually see his face.
Yeah, right.
And I think we should have not seen his face until he
Plus, it's the least effective effect of all of his. I don't even
remember what it looked like.
Face effects. It doesn't look good.
Yeah, but yeah, you should have not had it. Also, it would help if he didn't roar like an elephant when he was melting.
It'd be better. It's a real Jaws 4 lion kind of moment.
Well, that's why when you said earlier, "Ayus," I immediately assumed it was Jason going "Ayu," because at this point he goes like that when he's melting. So cut to the chase. Toxic waste burns off the evil surrounding the innocent child inside Jason Voorhees, like we always knew was the case long before this happened.
Right.
So, toxic waste is the hero of the movie.
The film.
Of all the endings that we've seen so far, with all their bullshit, this seems the most difficult one to walk back somehow.
Yes.
When it's kind of, because it's time travel. He hasn't been.
So basically, he hasn't aged.
So the toxic waste is able to turn him back into a child, which is reversing time.
Well, he might have been a child all along underneath, is what I'm saying.
Well, we know he's not. That's the problem, is we've seen him before. When he died, he was a grown man.
Yeah, we've seen too much grown man with the mask off.
We've seen too much grown man with the mask off. But I think they said in Crystal Lake Memories that they wanted to do something dramatic, like something that would put a spanner in the works.
Mm-hmm.
And would make it more. I don't remember what their rationale was for why they wanted to make it difficult for the next people making the movie, but it sounded like they didn't want it to be open at all. They wanted it to be a definitive spin on what happens to Jason.
I do kind of like the idea of the next movie saying "challenge not accepted."
Yeah. We'll just have Jason run into shot as he always was.
Yep.
And I don't. That's the interesting thing, is like, how hard would it have been to kind of essentially flush Jason down the toilet and send him back into the lake,
the waiting bosom of the lake.
Like, the toxic waste provides accelerant.
Yeah, right.
That takes him all the way back to Crystal Lake, and then obviously when he's back in Crystal Lake,
it takes him back, and it just starts to re-gunkify him.
Yeah, it starts to re-gunk. Well, you just skip the whole becoming a kid again. Have the toxic waste flush him back to Crystal Lake, and then once he gets back there, he's like, "Oh shit, that fucking spell that traps me here whenever I'm in this particular part of the lake."
Right.
Or maybe this is where Tommy Jarvis could have come back and been like, "I've been watching you, Jason. You can go to New York, but, you'll come back here eventually.
I got your number, motherfucker."
The spell is still in action, even when you're in New. Oh yeah, it's like he broke his. It's like he has a, what do you call it? A bracelet, an ankle bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
So Tommy Jarvis gets alerted if he leaves the Crystal Lake area, and then he could turn up like a bounty hunter and bring him back. Maybe Kane Hodder could have played that bounty hunter instead of Jason. That would have been better casting, I think.
That's about it. Toby lives.
Yes.
That's about it.
The mask drifts away, which, again, opens the door to the Jason mask being used on another person.
Mm-hmm.
Since Jason is now a child. But the series itself sticks with Jason because, well, as we'll discuss when we do the next episode, they had no choice but to make it all about Jason Voorhees because that was all they had the rights to.
Yeah, that's all they could do.
Friday the 13th. So they couldn't have done a new beginning because they didn't have the rights to any of that.
Right.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's an alternate ending to this movie where Jason's soul went into that dog. And I thought, and in my head I was like, haha, that would be so funny. I was like, that is no more or less ridiculous than what actually happens
anything
when
we've seen.
Toxic waste turns him back into a child.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's
the
Manhattan part of Jason Takes Manhattan.
We did it.
We did.
Credit check.
Yes, credit check. So Toby is played by the dog Ace, who gets pretty high billing for a dog. And a dog who's not in the movie much. To the point where he has higher billing than Julius. Which sort of undoes the good done with race in the movie.
That's not very nice.
No. This is where we see our people of color, and this is where we see our dogs.
Yeah.
I love that the cop
By the way,
listed
I
as...
think it would have been great if that was your only credit check. The dog.
Sure.
That would have been funny.
There's actually quite a few. The credit for the cop is Irish cop. Now, I'm not sure if the actor failed to convey this or it was just a racist assumption made by the people who wrote the credits, but I'm not getting Irish from this cop at all.
Yeah, I don't remember him being Irish.
Cable person, Nina MC Peak. And I'm always looking out for how they to the gendering of certain roles. And I haven't seen an example yet where they would say cable person and then put a man's name.
Right.
So I wonder if they put cable the only time you know that things have changed is if they put cable person, whether it's a man or a woman. And right now I've only seen examples of it being for a woman, so they don't have to say cable lady or, that kind of thing. So it's progressive-ish. This is this is budgetarily telling as far as credits go.
All right.
First aid and craft service are the same person. That tells you what kind of budgets this movie was working with.
Well, now wait, is the name like, Smith, or is it?
No, it's a name that it's definitely the same person.
Okay.
First aid and they're not listed together like first aid / craft services.
No, yeah, I understand.
If you look over the credits, the same person. So it's just like,
wow.
Would you like a burrito or a Band-Aid?
No, they had the food truck, and then at some point somebody cut themselves, and they're like, "You got any Band-Aids in there?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a Band-Aid. All right, we're gonna give you first aid coordinator on the credits.
They just unwrap a burrito and it's full of used Band-Aids. Assistant Property Master JC Brotherhood.
Wow.
So if you wanted to get a prop on this movie, you have to be a member of a cult.
I guess.
You have to join the JC Brotherhood, whatever that is. Oh, I don't have to go and see the JC Brotherhood, do I?
Yep,
I'm
you
afraid
certainly do.
Yeah. That's how that guy ended up with that hammer.
Yeah.
The dog Ace is not the only creature called Ace on this production. There's also electronic sound effects editor Ace O'Hearts. So, he took the name of the dog to coin a phrase from the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah.
You were named after the dog? Have a lot of fond memories of that dog. Also, Ace of Hearts kind of sounds like a character rather than a person working on the crew.
True.
Oh yeah, and then finally, that was a real naval computer.
That's nuts.
Oh no, one more. Sorry, that was also at the end, the locations are listed as New York and Vancouver. I'd say more of the former. Less of the former. More of the latter.
More of the latter. I was going to say, yeah.
More of the latter.
That's great.
Yep.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we ask you, what do you think of Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan? Yay or nay? We didn't call this movie good, but it's got its pleasures.
Yeah. I think we both like the final third pretty
absolutely.
Unreservedly, but the rest of it can be a bit of a slog.
Mm-hmm.
By design, almost.
Yeah. And then,
but you're always gonna have fun watching it.
Yeah.
Whether you're laughing at it or with it,
right?
You're always gonna have fun.
I agree. There is pleasure to be had in the Jason taking of Manhattan, eventually. So we need to know what you think. You know what to do.
Also, I got a title question.
Yeah.
Is it the Muppets Take Manhattan?
Yeah.
Is that where Jason Takes Manhattan comes from?
I don't know.
Was that a pre-existing phrase, like takes Manhattan in like in like 30s musicals or something?
Oh, that I don't know.
Were the Muppets trading? Oh well, okay. Well, there's some work for me for the pitch a sequel episode. Find out the origins of Takes Manhattan.
There you go.
Find out whether Jason is aping the Muppets or whether they're both aping something else.
Yeah. We'll update you later on in the series.
There we go.
And in the meantime, update us on what you think of this movie. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram. Do not find us on X, but go ahead and send a thread. Or write us that email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. When you hear us next, you're going to hear us talk. We, like Jason, are going to hell.
And we're doing a movie. We're going to hell and we're doing a movie.
Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday.
Which is not the final Friday.
Yeah, not by
just
a long
like
shot.
the final chapter wasn't the final chapter. That movie pulled that.
That was so long
twice.
ago. That was so long ago. The final chapter.
But this series pulled that gambit twice.
Yep.
Talk about not learning your lesson.
Yeah, the final destination was like, we're going to try it. Friday the 13th was like, you're crazy.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we talked about that when we covered the series, but that's crazy that each movie is called Final Destination and then there's a number after it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one or the other. Your destination is either final or there's no numbers there.
Or 5.
Yeah.
Think 5.
Yeah, it's either the 5th time you've done this or it's the final time. It's a tautology, guys.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
And as for you, you can forget about attending any film school ever!
Nobody tapes me trying to fuck an underage girl.
Didn't the movie feel like a high school college comedy film at that point? With the crusty old dean.
Yeah,
trying
very
to
much.
Stop the, Animal House getting to the having hijinks. What a strange movie this is.
Definitely. It's an oddball. All right, everyone, we'll be back.
It's an odd buoy. Because most of it's on the water.
Oh, I understood the reference. Thank you.
I know. I just thought I needed to clarify for the rest of the people listening.
You did not.
Okay.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back.
Woohoo!